Hi everyone. This is my overview video for week 7 of Comp 1. I'm going to walk you through some of the things that we are going to be doing this week. So this week is going to focus on getting started with your research process, finding your sources, reading them over, and sort of establishing a direction that you want to go in. So if you haven't solidified your research question yet, you'll definitely want to start doing that. Um, now, you may find that you need to change your research question after you have already started researching. That does oftentimes happen, depending on the sources that you're able to find, depending on how interested you end up being on the topic. You may want to change your research question after you get started finding sources, but I think it would be helpful for you to at least have a pretty good idea of what you want your research question to be before getting started. So first off here, we have a list of some different ways you can contact or get information from the library. Here is the email for the library. You can contact them. You can phone a librarian. You can also check out the library's YouTube channel. So all these are ways that you can, ask questions, get some more info on how to find sources. Um, and throughout the rest of these pages that we're going to be walking through, there are some like tips and videos and stuff that should be able to help you out. But in case you need a little bit of extra assistance, you are always welcome to contact the library. As per usual, we're going to get started with some readings. There is no assignment that goes along with these readings, but I think doing the readings will help you get a better sense of the research process. So we have a chapter on getting started with a research plan, a chapter on finding sources, a chapter on evaluating sources, and also a chapter on synthesizing ideas. It's a lot of reading, but I do think it will help you. And there are some good examples that the book provides. Our next screen here, task 7.2, is to begin finding resources. The types of sources that you should be looking for is really going to depend on your research question. Not all research questions are going to require the same kinds of sources. So it'll sort of be up to you to determine what kind of information you think you need. But for this project, you are going to need a couple of periodicals. A periodical is a source that is published periodically. So that would be like a newspaper, a magazine, an academic journal. And I am asking that you use a couple of periodicals in this project. A good place to start looking for periodicals is using a database called Academic Search Complete. I believe the next screen that we're going to go to here in a second will give you an overview of Academic Search Complete. But you do not have to use Academic Search Complete. You are also welcome to use Google to find your sources, Google Scholar. There are a lot of different ways that you can find sources. You have a lot of freedom in that regard. So this first video, task 7.2a, is about databases. What are they and how do you use them, which will definitely be helpful to you as you begin your research process. And then our next video is specifically on Academic Search Complete. Now, our library's website is, and actually, let me just take you there real quick. So this is just the Columbus State's website, and you can go directly to the library, but I wanted to show you how to get there through Columbus State's kind of homepage. So if you go to academics, you'll see a link to the library, and it will take you here. If you scroll down, you'll see a search bar that is already set up for you, and you'll notice that it is designed to search Academic Search Complete. Now, if you mess around with the settings and stuff, you can search other databases, not just Academic Search Complete, but that is the default setting for our library's website. Moving on. Task 7.2c is just asking you to begin actually looking for sources using Academic Search Complete. And here's a little recommendation for you. I would write down the titles of any sources, or copy and paste them, whatever works for you. But that way you can find them easily. I know from personal experience that it can be very easy to find a source one day and then really struggle to find it the next. But if you know the exact title of a source that sounds interesting, it becomes much easier to relocate that source. A couple of other notes here. If Academic Search Complete isn't really working for you, you can try out one of the other databases. And like I mentioned a minute ago, you can also check out Google, but you are more likely to find sources that aren't credible using Google. So before you just choose any old source that you come across with a quick Google search, you'll want to take a look at the chapter in your textbook on evaluating sources, because that will help you know if a source that you find is actually worth using. I've made a few videos in the past guiding students through how to navigate the library's website and how to use databases. I will maybe sometime tomorrow send out another email with links to those videos. This next task is a little bit involved. Once you have found some periodical sources, you should read them over and annotate them. And now, before you begin reading any of your sources, I would, first read the title, see if you can find a description or a summary of what the source is about, and then maybe skim through the source. Because sitting down and reading through an entire source can take a lot of time, and it really stinks to make it halfway through a source and realize that it's not really going to be useful to you. So try to get a good sense of what the source is going to be about before you commit to reading it. And once you start reading it, it's a very good idea to write down notes. I would, maybe make a special folder on your computer or in Google Drive where you save all your notes on sources, or if you want to have a special section in your notebook where you write things down. Uh, Annotating your sources, writing down notes about them, is going to help you better understand what the sources are saying. It's going to help you better remember information about the sources, and will very likely make it much easier to then go back to the sources later and find useful information. So the annotation part of this is actually pretty important. Now, once you've read and annotated at least 3 sources, you should respond to these prompts. First part here, you're going to write out your research question. And then these next 3 are exactly the same. So I'm just going to read one of them to you. Consider your first source. Write out the names of the authors, the article title, the name of the publication, the date of publication, the page numbers, if there are any, and also the name of the database that you found the source from. From there, write 2 paragraphs about this source. One paragraph in which you summarize what the author is saying, and another paragraph in which you respond to what the author is saying. How you choose to respond is kind of up to you. You could talk about whether you agree or disagree, whether the source is going to be helpful, how you think you're going to use the source. All of those are valid options. And you're going to repeat that for each of the sources that you have found. Skipping ahead to number 5. This one just tells you if you have more than 3 sources, just repeat this process for each of your sources. Again, it's going to help you better understand what the sources are saying. It's going to make it easier to actually use the sources when it comes time to write your paper. Number 6, you should look back over your sources and everything you wrote about them, and answer these questions. What have you learned about your overall topic after reading the sources? In what ways could these sources help you answer your question for Project 3? And of all the sources you read this week, which do you think you'll use in Project 3? Because for this activity, you're supposed to talk about at least three sources. You do not have to use all three of these sources in your paper. It's up to you to decide what you think is going to be useful and what won't be. And then finally, 7, consider whether there are other types of sources that could help you explore your research question. Is there someone you could interview? Could you develop a questionnaire that you distribute online? There are lots of other ways that you can collect information. Now, um, you need to answer number 7 here, but you don't necessarily need to do these things for your paper. So I'm not requiring you to develop a questionnaire. I'm not requiring you to conduct an interview. Those are just potential things that you can do to strengthen your paper. Task 7.4 is just asking you to read through a couple of samples of research papers available in our Student Success Gallery. As per the other projects that we've done in this class, I think taking a look at what other people have done will really help you get an idea of what this project should look like, the type of language you should be using, how to develop your ideas, how things should be organized, all that jazz. Task 7.5, you have a couple of discussion board posts that you'll be doing. The first part, which is due Wednesday by 11:59, you will be posting any hints you have discovered for using Academic Search Complete or any other sort of databases you've been using. So these are just, this is you sharing your insights with your peers. What has worked for you? What hasn't worked for you? What are some tips and tricks people can use to find good sources? Your second post, which is due Friday, you have a couple of options. You can either talk about in what ways the articles you found help you answer the question that you have developed for writing Project 3, and what are you still struggling with? Or, after reading the sample student papers, write about what you see as the strengths and weaknesses of the papers. So you don't have to do both, you can choose whichever you prefer. And then down here, please make sure that you reply to at least one of your classmates. When I grade your discussion board post, I will be looking to see that you have done all three of these things. And moving on, the only thing that you need to submit this week is just the writing that you did for task 7.3, which is where you were writing down notes about the sources that you have found and responding to some of those prompts. That should give you a pretty good overview of what we are doing this week. If you have any questions, just let me know.